Hello. Welcome to Keya's World, the live stream that never disappoints you, unlike everyone else. I'm just kidding. All right, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? I'm gonna do something just to check since we're starting out in the stream. I'm gonna see if I can show comments. Oh boy, it's working. Okay, thank you for joining. All right. Thank you, Miss Ocampo Wrights. Let's put it over here for now. That's a good spot for that. I want to put a different one. Let's pick a different one. Oh, that's big. Okay. Well, today, everybody, sorry. I'm learning how to live stream if you couldn't tell. If I haven't made that clear via my apprehension to commit to a style of delivering Rachel Hollis content to you, now you know. All right. Today I was going to talk about, and I think we will talk about it to some length, but I originally was going to comment on specifically Rachel Hollis and her finances, or her teachings on finances, because our favorite self-help guru and financial expert, well, not financial expert, but financial advice giver, Rachel Hollis, she has come out with a podcast that just completely pissed me off yesterday. And I know a lot of her podcasts piss me off, technically. But this one in particular really pissed me off because finances is something that I do struggle with, in the sense of feeling like I deserve money. I run a business unrelated to YouTube where I do video production, and it's often a conversation in our house with my fiance and I about, what to charge and how much do I deserve and how much revenue versus cost of production and blah, 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 blah. So that was a topic that I struggle with still to this day, that I sought out self-help gurus in my past. Jen Sincero is a big one. I read her book, How to Be a Badass with Money. And honestly, it screwed up my business for a while because I took this stupid advice. And basically, Jen Sincero's advice, which is related to Rachel Hollis's advice that she gave yesterday or whenever her podcast came out last week, is basically just believe and wish that money will show up at your doorstep, and it will. This is also related to The Secret, the book that Oprah made really, really popular back in like the early 2000s, where if you just imagine yourself rich, it will somehow come to you. And I'm embarrassed to admit, but I really believe that was the key, that was the secret, and that my issues with money comes from me not believing that I deserve money, as opposed to growing up in an environment where I didn't have much money, there is no education, at least where I went to school, in a public school in Florida, personal finance until you're in college. And even when you're in college, I tried to get that class a million times. I could never get it because it was always full, because everyone wants to learn about it. And a myriad of other reasons as to why finances are difficult, and one of them being that my mom, I think, didn't want me to have financial freedom because she wanted me to stay at home forever and live at her house. But I took on the task of trying to figure out my financial situation by reading idiotic books like How to Be a Badass with Money. I'll tell you one story before we start the full explanation of why this is relevant at all. But for a great example, so Jen Sincero and Rachel, we'll talk about that, basically says, if you believe you're worth X amount of money, so let's say $5,000, right? They don't go into specifics about what business you're in, how much it costs to run your business, whatever. All of these financial advisors talk about things in a very vague terms. So I run a video production business. And so they just say, okay, you're running your business, just think of a number that you think you deserve. So I said $5,000. Okay, so then when someone asks you, hey, how much money does this cost for your business, your service, you just say $5,000. But if you believe it in your heart that you're worth that, they'll say, okay, you're worth it. I'm going to give you that money, and it'll just magically appear in your bank account. So I literally did that to a client. They asked me what my service fee was. I said $5,000, and they never responded. They basically said, no, we want to pay $2,000, which is pretty reasonable, for the services provided. But because I said $5,000, I lost that client. And I 1,000% believed in myself that I deserved $5,000 at the time for just existing and being a manifester. Okay. And yeah. And, oh, sorry. I'm looking at the comments. Are there any, is it lagging? Let me know. Is it lagging for everybody, or is this just a one person issue? So anyways, so that's my little anecdote. And literally this business, it was a zoo that I was working for. I've never been able to work with them again. I have a friend who works there, and literally he makes it's so awkward to talk to him because they think I'm ridiculous that I just asked for this astronomical price with very little experience. I was just starting out of my business, and the advice was bad. So I basically burned a bridge there. And that was that. So anyways, so that's my little anecdote about how I took the advice that these financial people, not lagging for me, awesome, that these financial people give. And that's why I think I was personally offended when Rachel Hollis came out with her podcast yesterday, which I'll bring up now. It's episode 253. So let's switch gears. It's called Let's Talk About Money Part 1, because Part 1 wasn't good enough. We need a Part 2 coming out shortly. And she basically, we'll play a little bit of it. I don't think I have to play the whole thing. But she talks about how, being poor is essentially a mindset, and how if you just believe in yourself well enough, you can become financially free. So if you were on my Instagram, which if you follow me on Instagram, thanks so much. And if you don't, you can follow me on Keya's World, YT, for YouTube. And you can check out all my rants and ravings. But I was sitting here working on other work yesterday, and I was listening to it in the background because I think it's important to know what the heck's going on in Rachel Hollis's world, Hollisville, because if I'm going to talk about it, I want to see the whole picture and understand the whole picture, and not just a little sliver and my bias towards her. So I was listening to it, and it just pissed me off. I was visually and verbally angry, at least aloud to myself. But this is what I posted. I said, I'm sorry, but I am so sick of gurus saying the reason poor people don't have money is because of their mindset. Yes, I agree. Meanwhile, the guru is married to a rich man. That was me envisioning Rachel Hollis. Or their parents. There you go. I used some expletives. So sorry. The advice that we're going to listen to, and this is just to set you up, to get you into the mindset of where I'm coming from and why I'm pissed off about it. It's ignorant, and it ignores the systemic issues that affect why wealth is not equally spread. So what I always think of when this type of advice is given, like Rachel gave yesterday, is the world is an old place, right? It's millions of years old. Humans have been around for thousands of years, right? So can this advice, I always think of any advice, can this advice be taken 1,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago? Can it be taken in ancient Egypt? Can it be taken in medieval England? And if not, then it's probably not a earthly law, right? Gravity was the same in 1500 as it was in 2022. But the law of attraction is not the same as ancient Egypt as it is today, as I think. So therefore, it's not a law. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments. And have you thought about that? Does it apply to these older generations? Because based on Rachel's advice, basically, so for example, let's talk about ancient Egypt. Seems to be on my mind today. If you were building the pyramids in ancient Egypt, you were a slave, right? Now, did that person did they manifest that in their life because they didn't believe in themselves enough? Or was that what was going on at the time, their circumstances? There was very little options to get out of that, right? So how can it be a universal law that it's all in your brain, all in your mind? Because I don't think that if you were to say, well, we're all people who were in slavery, was that their mindset? I highly doubt she could agree with that. So that's where I get hung up. I mean, that's not only where I get hung up, but that's kind of like my final piece. It's like, it doesn't make sense then, it doesn't make sense now. So let's read her podcast, guys. Let's listen to her podcast, and I'll stop and start it and skip through a couple parts, and we'll listen to it on the regular speed, because sometimes I go too fast, or she talks a little slow though. Maybe like 1.2 speed, so we're not sitting here all day long. But thank you for your comments. I see that Brianna, let me pull your comment up. Thank you for liking my explanation. I appreciate it. Yeah, you can manifest yourself out of the caste system, according to Rachel Hollis. Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's listen, and then we're going to go on to talk about some of her other hippie ideology, Rachel's, and she even talks about being a hippie in this episode. Roll my eyes. And some of the problematic people she's platforming. And one of them she talks for about an hour with on one of her recent episodes on her YouTube channel. And she also had this woman on, or in her Rise conference, the one that I went to. So we're going to talk about her too. So first on the agenda, we're going to start with Rachel Hollis's bad financial advice. And then we're going to move on to her other hippie qualities. So just to keep you in the loop of how this show is going to be proceeding. All right, let's go.
Hey guys, welcome to another week and a new episode of the podcast. I'm Rachel Hollis. I'll be your friend and your host throughout this next time period. And maybe your teacher, but like your teacher who is your friend or your big sister or your little sister who has a little bit of information on this topic.
Okay, I know I'm stopping in the intro. Rachel Hollis is not your friend. She's a salesperson and a businesswoman who is unrelated to you as you listen to this. I hate when people say, hey friends, hey guests, hey guys, I love you all, you're all my besties. No, you're not. Friendships are two-way streets. Everyone watching, you guys are viewers. I appreciate you being here. I wish I knew more about you, but I don't. So it's disingenuous to lie and be like, I'm speaking to you at home, you and only you, baby. It's like, no, I don't know who's watching. I hope you're cool and nice and normal and fun and a good person, but I have no way to check. So this is an influencer gripe, but yeah. And she's not a teacher in any sense of being trained to teach. Teachers go to college to become teachers. So Rachel's saying she's your big sister / your little sister / a teacher / just your friend who's going to give you some quick tips on how to believe that you're not poor. It's like, I mean, I appreciate that she's not committing a felony, or not a felony, but like committing a crime here by giving financial advice in which she is not eligible to do so, because there is actually laws against giving financial advice. Like even my financial advisor who takes care of my 401k from when I was working in an office, he legally cannot tell me what to do. So Rachel legally cannot tell people what to do financially. So I think that's why she's putting this caveat to make sure you know, like, don't take this advice and go blow $1 million at the dog track or at the casino. Anyways, yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. I'm putting this on. My financial Sherpa. She said that at some point. She's a Sherpa, right? Anyways, okay.
An actual went to college to learn finances and now is telling you financial knowledge. I'm just giving you my advice on money. Hi, I'm Rachel Hollis, and we talk about everything, life, so that we can all...
Blah, blah, blah. Right. That's her intro.
That feels wild to me, probably to you too. But I recently did a 2-part series here on the podcast about, or maybe it was 3 parts actually, about mindset, like the mindset that you need for health and the mindset that you need for success. And I really felt strongly when I was designing those episodes that the most obvious one would be a money mindset. And to be totally honest with you, I didn't include it originally because money is just, it's taboo. It's like this thing that people don't talk about, or we're not supposed to talk about, or it'll get you in trouble, or whatever. But for weeks, I felt like I was sort of not being courageous just because I knew that talking about money might be problematic for people. And also, women especially need to be having conversations about money and finances and what they represent. We're totally underrepresented in the space, and there aren't a lot of honest conversations about how you attract money into your life, and also
Okay, so I don't think she's wrong 100%, but I think she's wrong in some aspects. So the thing I think she's right about is that women and people in general, I think, are putting themselves, including myself, at a disadvantage by not talking about finances like in the workplace. So not knowing what your coworker makes that you have more experience than, or work harder than, or whatever, is a disadvantage to you, not knowing where you are in the hierarchy of your corporate environment. I think sharing salaries, sharing bonuses, I think benefits you in a lot of ways based on, getting a better paying job and those sorts of things. That's not what she's really talking about. I think what she means in this, and it's based on other podcasts where she's spoken about money, is that women are looked down upon if they are money hungry, in the sense of if, they'll be called a gold digger, or they'll be called too ambitious or whatever. And she seems to be on this train of thought in a lot of her books and a lot of her messaging, that women aren't supposed to have dreams. And if you criticize a woman having a dream to be a millionaire, to whatever, then you're a jerk, and women need to have these bigger dreams of bigger success in order to feel good about themselves, I suppose. Now, I think a lot of times feminism in this way, this like woke feminism, girl boss style stuff, can almost be, women need to be more like men. And I think that's a problem. And I think, men tend to, or at least the stereotype is that men tend to be more money hungry, or more of the providers, or more of the people. And statistically, it's true that they make more money and they're given more money for the same roles, same tasks. But that the problem doesn't lie in that. The problem lies in women not pushing themselves harder to be up there with the men. And I have a problem with that, because isn't the problem that the employers and the systems are not fair, as opposed to women need to push themselves more? And women do a lot of things that don't cost money in the eyes of capitalism, where, childbearing, taking care of children at the home, keeping a home, cleaned and cooked for, and keeping a household running, where there is no financial gain from that necessarily, but allows the man to go out and work and make the money for the family. But it's looked at as like he's the breadwinner, she does nothing all day. And so I've always had a problem. Well, I haven't always had a problem with that, but once I started to go to therapy and deal with my issues, I've had a problem with that mindset, that women just aren't ambitious enough and need to push ourselves and to be more money hungry and to be more someone who talks about how much money we make all the time. I think it is kind of improper to be braggadocious about oh, sorry, my cat, oh my gosh, I almost fell over. Sorry, Taro. I think it is a little bit, I don't know, it's not taboo, but it does turn me off when someone, woman or man, is talking constantly about how much money they're making. Unless it affects me personally, I don't really want to know. I'm glad that you're financially stable, but I don't think it's wow, what an amazing person. This person is bragging about how much money they have, or they're showing, it's Grant Cardone on his, private jet, as if like that is supposed to be the ideal guru to look up to. That's someone who is open about their money, that somehow that's better than being humble, but also taking care of their finances. So I find this logic to be in line with what Rachel Hollis is saying, that, she's talked openly about hating being poor, being embarrassed by her, mother's box cake for her birthday, and having secondhand clothing, which ironically now she's only buying secondhand clothing, according to her. But that's my little rant. That women being more like men, I don't find is the solution to our problems as women. And I think just telling women to be more aggressive is not a solution. I think the solution lies somewhere in the systems in play that decide what is fair and how we value ourselves. If we only value ourselves by money, we're always going to have these issues if we're not constantly pushing ourselves into that hustle culture mindset. So that's my rant. Thank you very much. Let's continue.
Oh, your childhood plays such a big role in the finances, the revenue, the success financially that you experience as an adult. So I told myself to stop being such a weenie and just do an episode. So that's what we're going to talk about today, guys. We're going to talk about money. And honestly, if you already feel a little weird, like if you're already like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable, or fill in the blank, then you probably need this episode most of all, because
I guess I need this episode most of all. And also just a side note, weenie, #weenie is her new word. She's brought it up in like several of her videos recently, that she was such a weenie for not going in the water. She was such a weenie for not wanting to ski. So weenie is Rachel's new word. That's the new rad. Weenie is the new rad of 2022. #weenie is the new rad.
We have to familiarize ourselves with the conversation. We have to be willing to discuss it. We have to be open about it. And if you were raised anything like I was raised, that was a subject, like there were three subjects, I guess, that you were not allowed to talk about. And that was, it was rude to discuss money, it was rude to discuss politics, and it was rude to discuss religion, which is...
Okay, so it's rude to discuss politics, it's rude to discuss religion, it's rude to discuss money. I kind of tend to agree. I don't know. I mean, I think these things it's a pendulum, right? You know, society is a pendulum. So, you know, one year we're really obsessed with weight and being skinny and being like, you know, low-rise hip hugger jeans is in. And then it swings to the other side. And then it's like body positivity and everyone needs to be comfortable with their body. And somewhere it comes in between and we start to go into the middle where both sides align, or politics, anything. But I think when it comes to discussing those things, it's like, yeah, you should be able to be open about things, but constantly throwing your opinions down other people's throats politically, religiously, or monetarily, I'm not interested in that either. So I think to keep polite discourse, I think that makes sense. And I don't think you should hide things from your family and loved ones, but if you're in mixed company, that's kind of the rule of thumb. Do I need to know what your paycheck is? No. Do I need to know your political affiliation? No. Do I want to know, you know, the intimate details of your sex life? No, I don't. So that's general people. I mean, I think that's what she means too in this way that she's talking. Just generally you need to be able to discuss these things wherever and whenever you want. I don't know if that's true. If you're choosing to go on a platform and discuss that because that's something you're interested in, great. But I don't think you need to do that to be a successful, healthy human being, to constantly throw out all of your opinions all the time. That's just my 2 cents as I give you my opinion.
Crazy, because my dad was a pastor. I guess it was rude to discuss any religion other than ours, which is deeply problematic. But here we are, guys. Let's talk about money. Money and wealth and finances and debt and all of the things, and how those words or what they symbolize to you make you feel. Because if we're going to talk about financials, I just want to be clear. I don't want to have a conversation about money to offer you my best like investing advice or money saving tips. Like, I am not the girl for that. There are so many people who are excellent and have a wealth of information, pun intended, who can give you advice in that area. And they have podcasts you should totally go listen to. Where I feel like I have expertise is in growing up poor and building a business as an entrepreneur that took me from that childhood to the wealth that I have today.
Unless I've already listened to this, so I know the answer is not this, but unless her advice is find a partner, whether woman or man, so wife or husband, you know, regardless of who you are, who has a secure salary, preferably on the higher end of things, and also interacts or has celebrity adjacent qualities if you want to go into business in a field that deals with that. So find a partner who fulfills your financial needs and also has connections in the industry that you want to be involved in, to give you time to be able to test things and fail and try things and fail and go on free speaking engagements to build your brand and those types of things. That is the true secret, the secret sauce of success for Rachel Hollis. If she was a single mom raising 3-4 kids while she was trying to come up and do all these things, she wouldn't have money to put food on the table. She wouldn't be able to take as many risks as she has. And that's an unfortunate fact of life, and the same thing that I'm going through right now. I moved in with my fiance 2 years ago, right when the pandemic was really in full swing. And I got laid off from my job, and I was able to, because of his secure paycheck every 2 weeks, I was able to start and grow my business these last 2 years without worrying about where I was going to live, if I was going to be homeless, if I was going to have, food on the table for me to eat, if I was going to be able to afford my gym membership. The only reason, and we disagree about, him and I disagree about, not everyone could do that. I appreciate that, but at the same time, without his support, I wouldn't be able to do it. And some people rely on their parents, some people rely on a partner, some people rely on loans taken out from the bank, but there has to be a cash infusion coming from somewhere, some sort of security blanket that you're able to have in order to take risks as an entrepreneur. And whether that comes from a loan, whether that comes from your family, your friends, an angel investor, that is the pillar of how you're able to do it. That's how every single company in this country started in some way, shape, or form. It didn't start by getting into a money mindset and sitting on the floor and doing meditations and thinking about money, which is an abomination to meditation, to have a money meditation. But anyways, that's a side note. She doesn't discuss that at all. Where do you get that initial cash infusion? For her, it came over time in a slow drip from Dave. But she was able to live her life, buy clothes, buy food to make recipes with, hire people while she was growing. And that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference in the world. That's the truth.
And I did that without a high school diploma, and I did that making up a category for myself.
Okay, wait, let me go back for a second.
Building a business as an entrepreneur that took me from that childhood to the wealth that I have today. And I did that without a high school diploma, and I did that making up a category for myself and learning the internet and learning digital and learning all of those things compiled with learning how to run a business. So what's a P&L? What's a balance sheet? Do you use debt? Do you have debt strategy? Like, that's sort of what I'm bringing, right? But then also, you're going to hear all of this from me. And if you don't know this about me yet, if you're a newbie here to our friendship circle, then let me just tell you, I am a super hippie in that I believe in manifesting.
Okay, two things there. One, she said she never had a high school diploma, which I think it was a slip of the tongue, I believe, and she meant to say she doesn't have a college degree. But the fact that she said diploma was almost kind of surprising, because usually if you were to say the wrong word, you'd say, I didn't have a high school degree, but you actually meant college degree. But she says, I never had a high school diploma. But literally in the intro of her podcast from like 2019, it says, I built $1 million business with only a high school diploma and Google. That's her claim to fame. So, and that's how she branded herself, as like, just like you, I have no special education in this. I just figured it out through Google. And also my husband, who worked at Disney, but don't think about that. Don't talk about that. And then second thing, I'm a hippie. If you guys didn't know, if you're new around here, literally, if you haven't checked in with Rachel Hollis in like 2 years, like you forgot she was a person, and then came onto this podcast just to like catch up and see what's new in her life. And she said, if you're new around here, I've always been a hippie, or I'm a hippie. It's like, since when? This is like new in the last year, maybe? And she's slowly dribbling out this content to say she's a hippie. She said it like several times recently. She's no longer a weenie. She is now a hippie. Or no, yeah. And I think that's part because she's now, apparently, according to her podcast from 2 weeks ago or a week ago, she's going on tour again, and she's going to be on stage again. So I have a feeling that it's going to be spirituality based. And yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. I hope it gets canceled, to be honest. So let's go back a little bit. We can listen to that part again, just so we can all take in the essence of that. She's a hippie and she believes in manifesting. If you didn't know about that, then like you're not her true friend, apparently.
Go listen to. Where I feel like I have expertise is in growing up poor and building a business as an entrepreneur that took me from that childhood to the wealth that I have today. And I did that without a high school diploma. And I did that making up a category for myself and learning the internet and learning digital and learning all of those things compiled with learning how to run a business. So what's a P&L? What's a balance sheet? Do you use debt? Do you have debt strategy? Like that's sort of what I'm bringing, right? But then also you're going to hear all of this from me. And if you don't know this about me yet, if you're a newbie here to our friendship circle, then let me just tell you, I am a super hippie in that I believe in manifesting. I believe in the law of attraction, and I believe that we attract into our life the energy level and the vibration that we put out. And roll your eyes all you want. I have seen this shift in like understanding how and what we manifest and how that translates into our finances. I have seen people grasp this time and time and time again and watched their financial situation change completely, like exponential growth, doing so much better, getting out of debt, never having a late payment again, all of those things by a shift in mindset. So roll your eyes if you want to, but just buckle up, because I swear if you haven't tried these techniques that I'm going to talk about today and you struggle financially, or you feel like you're afraid of money, or you feel like I'm using air quotes, that you're bad with money, or any of those kind of things, this is going to be a really important conversation. But that is the lens through which I see this topic. So let's start with one of the most important factors that you need to consider when you're trying. I assume that you are listening to this podcast because you want to make more money, or you want to have more money, or you don't want to feel like it's such a struggle, or you don't want to be afraid of money, whatever that looks like to you. Like, I assume that's why you're listening. And so that's the lens that I'm going to teach through. And quick side note, I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have a course on money. I'm never going to have one. There's nothing coming at the end of this. I feel like sometimes we get a little nervous when we hear things like someone's trying to teach and they're like, oh God, what's the angle here? Or are you trying to get me to join a business or fill in the blank? No, this is just a topic that I think is important. And that's why I'm teaching on it. I don't have anything to sell you. Let's start.
So, okay, I left it going for quite a while, but that last part I thought was interesting. She says, and just a side note, I don't have anything to sell you. I have nothing, no course, no mastermind to sell you. Today, specifically, hard sell you on. I think she's taking the Gary Vee approach, which is, to me, still, it's maybe better than the people who go out there and try to hard sell you, like Dean DeGrazio, who will do these, free webinars, or any of the scammers that do it so openly and blatantly, where they say like, I'll show you how to make $1 million in 5 minutes. And then you go watch their seminar, and they it's an hour-long webcast where they basically just hard sell you on like courses to become a millionaire. Tony Robbins, sort of hard sells you on going to his mastermind, his whatever, UPW, blah, blah, blah. So yes, so she's not selling something to you today, but just like Gary Vee, she sells her attention. She sells her spots on her podcast to sell ads to you. If she speaks on a stage, she's basically endorsing the company that she speaks for in not so many words. Or if you go to her conferences about whatever, and she brings a person on that paid her to be there to speak to you, that is, I think, very similar to using her platform to sell you something. It's like gain your attention, sell you later. That's her mindset. I don't think it's out of the goodness of her heart just to give you this financial advice because she wants you to win and be successful. It's like, what does she care? She doesn't want to be relatable. She told us all that, a year ago. Or what made you think that she wants to be like you idiot? So, she thinks she's on the Harriet Tubman level of success. So you guys are all just down, we all are down at the feet of Rachel. So we can never compete and never compare. So the fact that she puts that caveat in, like, I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm glad. Thank you. Appreciate it. But also, I don't think that it's coming from out of like the sweetie pie hippie. I just want to spread love and positivity. It's to sell you later down the line. Come buy my book. Come to my new upcoming conference that she's putting on. Whatever.
The most important thing that you maybe haven't thought of, and that is understanding what you really think about money, what you really think about financials, or what you really think about wealth or accumulating wealth or having financial success. What do you really think? Because there's what we think on sort of the surface level, and then there's what we believe subconsciously. And your finances, the amount of money that you have right now and that you've got in your bank account, are directly connected with what you believe subconsciously, not what you want in your conscious brain. So the way...
Okay, so she said in that little quote, what you have in your bank account. Let's go back. Let me not misquote her. Like she misquotes Maya Angelou. Let's listen to it again.
You have right now and that you've got in your bank account, do you really think? Because there's what we think on sort of the surface level, and then there's what we believe subconsciously.
So there's what you think on the surface level, and there's what you believe subconsciously. Okay, I'm following thus far.
And your finances, the amount of money that you have right now and that you've got in your bank account, are directly connected with what you believe subconsciously, not what you want in your conscious brain.
Okay, so I'm quite lost, but what is in your bank account is directly correlated to what subconsciously you believe. Okay, let me tell you something. I have more money in my bank account today than I ever have in my past. I am more insecure about money than I've ever been as well because I'm afraid to lose it. So subconsciously, wouldn't I have no money because I'm constantly worried about it in her manifesting mind? So because I'm worried all the time about it, wouldn't I have less? When I was like 100% secure in myself and I was like doing this, like reading Jen Sincero and reading Rachel Hollis, I had little to no money because I was spending my money on this dumb self-help and going to conferences. I actually did see, I think I've told you about this before, everyone, but thank you very much, Kitty Mervine, by the way, I appreciate that. That I went to a Gary Vee conference and a Tony Robbins conference. It was much cheaper. It wasn't like the real Tony Robbins where it's like thousands of dollars. It was $40. But basically, Gary Vee spoke in the morning and Tony spoke in the afternoon. And the kicker was you had to listen all day to these scammer people who would come and try to sell you on timeshares and stuff. And you weren't allowed to leave the arena. And if you left, you could never come back. So if you paid $40 to see Gary Vee and Tony Robbins, you were out of luck. You only got to see Gary Vee if you came in the morning. And if you missed the morning session, you couldn't come in later. So it was a whole scam. But I was that like indoctrinated into the lifestyle that I was like, this is going to make me a millionaire. I'm going to be so much better. I had literally I was so broke. I was in so much debt. Now that I went to therapy and like actually like hate all these people, I have more money than ever. And it's not like a whole lot, not like, oh, I'm set for life for sure. But that doesn't even make sense. Like I am way more negative now than I was back then and I have more money. So already this is BS. All right, let me read some of the comments for a second while we have a break. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Rebecca. She's making it up as she goes. I have no idea. I think this is a great point, Ashley. She also, and Rachel has talked about her miscarriage recently, that she had one this year, or 2021. So in her mind, she must have done something to bring that upon herself. Right? Like if she says everything subconsciously happens to you happens to you. Now she's changing her mindset. It doesn't happen for you. It happens to you because you've done it to yourself. So that, it only matters when she wants it to matter. It's not a clear-cut law of attraction, as she has said within this podcast. Apparently, it ebbs and flows depending on what topic she's discussing at what time. All right, let's continue.
So the way that I love to explain this is first, you could do this in a journal if you want to, or you could even just pause the podcast and kind of say it out loud. But when I'm talking to people about this, I'll often say, okay, tell me like what your vision is, what would be your dream to have in terms of financials. And so some people say, I'd love to make $75,000 a year. Some people say, I'd love to get my business to $1 million. Some people would say, I want to be debt free. Whatever it is, everyone has this vision of the amount of money that would really make them feel whatever way they want to feel. And so I say, okay, well, explain, like, give me all the words and all the, and they're like, oh, if I had that money, it would mean freedom. If I had that money, it would mean security. If I had that money, it would mean, you could do this too, right? If I asked you right now, if you were at a conference with me and I was like, okay, tell me what it would mean for you to have an additional $100,000. If I just handed you a check for $100,000, I'm making this up. No taxes, just free and clear, you have $100,000. What would that give you? So you could come up with a list, right? So everybody has answers and they're glorious and beautiful and they sound so fun and so good. And it's like, this is the life. This is what I want to have. And then you ask people, okay, great. Now tell me, what did you hear, learn, know, or believe about money, about wealth, about success, about being rich from your parents when you were little? So I grew up.
Okay, so that was a lot of word salad, reminiscent of Dave Hollis's live streams. It just kept going on and on and on without really coming to a conclusion, because I think this subject matter and a lot of people in this space, self-help space, spirituality space, they aren't really saying anything because there's nothing really to say, so they just talk in circles and say like key buzzwords like manifesting, quantum leaping through the universe at high vibrational rates and speed of energy that I'm feeling from you to I. Like, I could talk like that for an hour and say absolutely nothing, and people would be like, love it, girl. Just preach it. It's like, okay, like, all right. And I think people accept it because it's almost like you're defeated by the amount of word salad going on, and you feel like it's your fault that you're not comprehending the magic that they're throwing out. So you just go, oh, interesting, very cool. And I want to bring up this comment that I think is really great, and it's from Alpaca Paca. Life coaches always want to teach you that you should spend freely. What goes out comes back to you. Money is circular energy. Yes. Okay, and then it says, they say this because they want you to spend $5,000 on a course. You nailed it, 1,000%, 1,000,000%. That is what it is. And I think Jen Sincero is guilty of this, and Rachel also is guilty of this, and Tony Rock, all of them are guilty of this, honestly. If someone's telling you, give money, it'll come back to you tenfold. It's something they say in the church. I don't go to church. I went to Catholic church. They didn't say anything like this when I was there. But in some evangelical churches, I've heard, and I've worked with some of them in my other business, they'll say, whatever you give, that'll come back to you tenfold or 50-fold or whatever. So if you give $10,000 to the church or to the life coach or to the program or whatever you're doing, your Tony Robbins conference, you'll get that back in your business and it'll pay for itself. And don't worry, it'll just believe, it'll come. Like, you don't have to actually learn anything. You just like being in that vibration around other people vibrating at the same time. It's like, it'll come back to you. It's like, what if it doesn't? Well, don't think about that. That's negative. Don't think about that. Don't critically think about, giving money to me, who I have no qualifications and apparently no high school diploma, at the very least, giving you financial advice. Yeah, it's to get you to give over your money to them. So the only person that's manifesting anything is the person on stage, a la Rachel Hollis, having people pay her thousands of dollars to talk about her tampons. She's manifesting, wealth and amazing things, but the rest of us are stupid. All right, I'm seeing a lot of comments come in, so let me read a couple of these. Yep. She's always selling something. Totally agree. Well, I agree. I agree with this. Conservative and positive or liberal. I think it comes from the church or it comes from, more spiritual. That could be the difference, but I agree. Let's see. Yeah, prosperity gospel is not the gospel. They are snake oil salesmen. I agree. Snake oil, can cure everything. Believe in the snake oil and it'll work for you. I mean, that's literally what placebo effect is. I mean, placebo effect is a real thing. It is studied and tested. That's how they do clinical studies with placebo pills, placebo treatments. So there is something to be said for placebo, but they're not saying that while they're selling you products. They're not saying like, well, this product may not work for you, but the placebo effect is very strong. So even if you don't learn anything about finances, just feeling like you've learned about finances may be enough to tip the scales and make you feel better about your finances. I mean, that is probably the only outcome that could be positive. But hearing Rachel talk about believing that your bank account comes from your brain is not helping anybody, and it's not realistic, and it's stupid. Let's continue. She's going to talk about her childhood now. So, and as a preface, I feel like Rachel and I had a very similar childhood in the sense of what she discusses is how their financial situation. I was raised by my mom. For the most part, it's a single mom. My dad was in and out because he had mental health issues, and he was not able to hold a job for very long. So, sometimes we had some money, sometimes we had little money, sometimes we had a little more. And I think I can see eye to eye with her and also understand those moments where you're wanting to be rich as an adult and finding it very important to make your own money and try to find money. But that's not a lesson that's just like a hardship that it's been a lifetime of trying to overcome, is to be financially secure. And like I said, I wasn't financially secure until I got with my fiance and had these 2 years to build up my finances and pay off some of my debt. Believing and wishing and hoping and all the things that I've done previously to that did nothing but continue to perpetuate the thing that I wasn't doing enough ever. So let's hear what she has to say about her childhood.
My dad was a Pentecostal minister, and I heard things like money is the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees, right? I grew up believing that we would never had enough money, that we would always run out, or that we would live paycheck to paycheck. I was telling my boyfriend the other day, there were a lot of times where there was no food in the house, or maybe there would be like beans, right? Or, everyone, I think if you grew up poor, each family sort of have their version of what might be like what dry goods you might have. Maybe you had some rice, or maybe you had some beans like we did. But when my parents got paid, it was this huge deal because they would go to Costco. And us kids knew the payday because it meant that we were about to have groceries. I don't know if any of you, I remember.
She tells the story as if all her followers are like millionaires and could not comprehend that most of America lives this way. I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I see the world from a poorer perspective, that I feel like most of the United States, if not 50% or less, do live paycheck to paycheck, do have kids who are hungry or don't have enough or have to say no to some activities, can't do every sport, can't do every activity that they want to do because, the parents aren't bringing enough money in, or mom took a gap in her, work because she had to raise the kids and now she's trying to get back to work and it's difficult and there's not always money for everyone. She talks like, I don't know if you guys ever, I've heard of this, but we had beans in the house. And I was telling my boyfriend, who's uber rich, that we didn't have money all the time. It's like, yeah, so what's new? I mean, I feel like it's more, I don't know, maybe I'm nitpicking this part a little bit too much, but I feel like she talks in a way of like, this is unbelievable. Could you imagine me being a poor person in my childhood? It's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are, and you're the anomaly that got out of it. Most people who start off in a situation remain in that situation because it's hard to, like I said, get that cash infusion to be able to get yourself out of it. Like I went to college, I paid for it myself with loans, a lot of student loans and scholarships. And then when I got out, unless I had that ability to get a huge job, which, I went into journalism, so good luck, I was going to have to pay that debt back. And now that puts me back in the hole. So now I have to work towards paying off this, $30,000, $40,000 that I just took out. I have to buy a car. I have to get an apartment. It's like, I'm already starting behind. Now, if you had money from your husband like she did, or if you had money from your parents, they paid for your education, you're starting off ahead. You're $30,000 ahead of where I started, and or anyone, you know, and there's different levels of that. Some people didn't go to school. Some people stayed and they can never grow over time because they don't have the college education to get them to the next level in the career they want to go to, or there's only so much growth they have in their career. So there's so much more nuance to all of these conversations, and you really should get rid of the blanketed advice and go seek someone out, pay the money to go seek someone out that can hear your story to give you one-on-one advice, because that's really the only way this is going to help. Seeking a financial advisor or a financial planner or someone that can hear what your issues are, what your debts are, goes to a bankruptcy counselor, something where they can sit down with you and see things that like are actually happening in your life, because otherwise taking financial advice from someone who doesn't know your situation is completely useless, in my opinion, other than save more than you spend. I mean, that's a pretty good universal term. But what if you make $30,000 and you have, you know, $100,000 of debt? It's like there's absolutely no way, unless you know you are just constantly in debt all the time, or you win the lottery, or you marry someone who's got money, that you can get out of that situation. So, great advice, Rachel.
Them pulling up in the driveway on payday, having gone to the grocery store, and us kids being so freaking excited because we went and helped with the groceries because we wanted to see what food we were going to have. And there were times where it was still pretty lean, where maybe we would just have really basic staples in the back of the car. And then there were times where maybe they had a little bit more, and that was when we got like cookies, right? Or, now we have, it was such a big deal to get, for me, because I would take my lunch, because that's what the cool kids did. Like, you should take your lunch. There wasn't always options to take your lunch, but around payday, and sometimes in those like seasons where maybe my parents had a little bit more, we could get Capri Suns. Do you know what a Capri Sun is? It was like the richest I ever felt in my life. Do you guys know
what Capri Suns are? I know this is like the poorest of the poor have Capri Suns, but you know, we had that and I thought it was really special because I was so poor. Yeah, I agree with what Sunny said, that it seems like she's almost competing in the poor Olympics. And we see this, I also talk about people who lie on the internet about having medical issues, or when I think they may be lying, as part of my channel when I started. And a lot of people in that community who have, you know, these illnesses, or think they have these illnesses, or want to have these illnesses, they compete with like who's suffering the most, like suffering Olympics, they call it in the space. It's like, oh, I have 17 chronic illnesses. I have this, I have this, I have that, I have this, I had this procedure. It's like, it never ends. It's always like, I had it worse, I had it worse, I have it worse. It's like, that's what it seems like with Rachel a little bit. And she's not fully into it. I want to like trash her completely in this one area. She's not totally saying that she was the poorest person ever, but she's almost making it seem like Capri Suns, we couldn't afford a 75-cent Capri Sun. It's like, was that true? I mean, your dad was wasn't like a homeless man. He was a preacher, owned a business from what I know. And your mom was a stay-at-home mom. I mean, that seems like a pretty normal, lower middle class upbringing. Plus she had 4 siblings, I think, or she was one of 4. So that seems to track. It's not that insane that, you know, there would be leaner times or seasons, as she likes to say.
I'm gonna get like a 6-pack of Capri Suns, and I would be like, oh my gosh, 6 times I can take a lunch to school and I have a Capri Sun, and I felt like $1 billion. My favorite weddings to go to are the ones where you can tell the couple really incorporated themselves and their stories. They're not just sort of doing the cookie cutter thing, they're really making it unique to them.
This is an ad.
If you're planning a wedding, there's good news. For any kind of wedding you want, there's one place to start. Zola. Zola has everything.
Zola. Okay, I haven't heard her use Zola before. Maybe she's had it on the podcast before, but I wonder if she's planning her wedding soon. Zola is already a sponsor. Maybe she's reached out and said, "Hey, me and my boyfriend are gonna get married, and I would love to have you as a sponsor as we, get as I start dropping hints through time." Okay, let's continue. I'll try to
need
skip
all
through.
In one place as you covered. Once you've said,
but Zola doesn't sponsor me, so we're not gonna play this whole thing.
I watched my parents fight constantly over not enough money. I watched them fight over debt. I watched them regularly get money and then spend it all immediately. And
Rachel, that's what's called living paycheck to paycheck. You get the money from your paycheck and then you spend it on the things you've already bought, like groceries and furniture for the house and kids' clothes and that sort of thing. That's what living paycheck to paycheck means. She doesn't say what they spent the money on, but unless it's like, booze and gambling, like I don't think it's probably anything that isn't totally a normal thing to do when you're in that situation trying to raise kids with limited income.
Just how that manifested in between them and all of that, right? So I have all those things, and when I ask this question to an audience, oftentimes the things that they shout are like rich people are evil or money is evil. And just real quick, because so many people get that scripture or that idea wrong, money isn't evil. Money it's a resource. It's something that you can transact with. It's a tool. It's not money is the root of all evil. The actual scripture, in case anyone's wondering, is 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all evil. So some people grew up having a really healthy relationship with money, having parents that talked to them about money, having parents who were financially secure and didn't struggle and sort of knew the financials. And that means, for people who made $40,000 a year or $10,000 a year, but had a handle on how to manage that. And then there were people whose parents made.
Okay, so she said a lot there, but let's focus on the last part. She says there's some people who have $40,000 a year and some people who have $10,000 a year and make it work because they know how to use their finances. Rachel, I'm going to tell you right now, there is nowhere in the United States, and someone Googles it and finds that I'm wrong, I'll move there tomorrow. There's nowhere that if you make $10,000 a year and you have children, and I shouldn't say that, but I'm assuming if you have children, where can you live? How can you afford to have food? I don't think there's any situation that I am aware of where no matter how much avocado toast you resist and Starbucks coffee you don't enjoy, that you can live on $10,000 a year. It doesn't matter. And she's about to say well, there's some people who don't manage their finances that have $500,000 a year. It's like, yeah, that's true, but it's not that they're better at managing. $10,000 can only get you so far, and it's not realistic to think without help that $10,000 is something that's going to support anyone on this planet that doesn't have backing or savings or something coming from some other source. If you were out on the street, you graduated from high school at 18 and have $10,000 a year at your job, and you have expenses and an apartment and all these things, there's no way you're gonna make it. I'm sorry. If you maybe somewhere really rural, but even so, you're not having retirement savings. You're not putting money away for if you need a surgery. You may be, again, living paycheck to paycheck. At the very least, even $40,000 is difficult in today's age.
$500,000 a year who lived in debt and maybe went into bankruptcy. So the amount of money you have has nothing to do with how you're doing in terms of security when it comes to your finances. But here's what you need to get. Whatever was ingrained into you as a little kid, whatever you overheard or saw or believe, people like us just never get a break, or we're always poor, we come from poor people, we're not smart enough to make money, we're not smart enough to handle money, blah, 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 blah. That is, unless you have done some crazy therapy to eradicate that mindset, that is what you are holding subconsciously when it comes to money. I mean, if you look at your parents' financial situation and compare it to, not that you have the same job or that you make the same amount as your parents, but how often do you do the exact same thing that you saw, right? How often are you making the exact same choices that they made? So what...
As opposed to what, though? What other choice could you make? Believing that you have more money? That's not going to do anything for you, Rachel. You grow up in a place where your parents don't have that much money. Okay, so they're probably not going to help you boost you to the next level, right? They're not going to give you a trust fund. They're not going to give you money to go away to school with. Okay, so now you're going to be in the same, like I said, in a negative starting position. You're at the starting line. Now you have to go back 100 yards because you owe money to the bank, and now you have to pay interest on that money. So every month your take-home pay gets less and less and less that you can put into taking your risk on a business. You can put into an investment fund or something. If you're making $40,000, $10,000, whatever in that lower bracket, you're basically trying to survive. If you have any savings for a tire blowing out or any of these things, you're lucky to have anything in the till, right? So the fact that she's like, oh, it's your mindset, your parents' mindset makes you the mindset. It's not your parents' mindset. It's your parents' situation is more likely statistically to have you end up in the same situation because they're not able to help you financially. Why do you think people with money put their kids in private school? If public school is just as good, why would they want to spend $20,000 a year to put them in private school? Well, because that has their kids be around other people who make more money, and so their friends now are able to, their parents have more money, and that group now is stronger and more financially, stable or whatever, and so they're more likely to be paired up and go do businesses together as opposed to having a kid go to a public school and figure it out on his own. I mean, it's not a secret that rich people with money, give their kids money because it is hard to start and do things all on your own with no capital, with no startup funds, with nothing, with debt, anything. It's a known fact. Otherwise, I think parents who have money wouldn't give their kids money. But in their wills, they leave the money because they know how hard it is to make something out of nothing. It's so rare. And it's like money compounds. So if you have zero to start with, it's going to take a lot longer to get anywhere free than if you start with a lot or some and then let it grow over time or have a security blanket to take risks. So again, just reiterating my point that, she's not being realistic at all.
Have to understand before you can get to a place where you're even capable of making money. Like this is a freaking, look it up. This is a fact. You will, if you do not have the mindset, if you do not have the right kind of consciousness around wealth, you'll never have any. And it happens because whatever you believe about what you are capable of is what you will keep living into. Whatever.
Okay, sorry. This is going to go on a side tangent again. Whatever you believe. My dad, and I mentioned him having, mental illness, but my dad believed every single time he went to the horse track, he goes like every day still to this day. And he has some money. He doesn't blow it as much as he used to. But when he had a paycheck, he would take the whole paycheck and go to the horse track and believe in his heart every single time and put his money on it where his mouth was and bet on a horse and lose our entire paycheck for the week and put my mom and I at a disadvantaged situation where we were, hungry or having to put stuff on credit cards and, hope for the best for next week. My dad believed every single time that he was going to win. That's a gambler's addicted mindset. That is not a mindset you should be teaching people to inherit from a financial guru or any self-help guru at all. If you believe and you put, like I said, he put his money where his mouth was and where his mind was and put it on black at the craps table and lost, he would go back the next week and do it again with the belief that it was going to work. That triggers me, obviously, because, and this is why I was so triggered yesterday, is because it only works if you win. It's the confirmation bias. This is only good advice if you go to play the lotto every single day and win one day. If you go every single day and lose and die and no one hears about your story, who cares? But the one that kept going and kept going and kept going and spent all his life savings about one at the end, okay, that's great advice. Everyone should do it. But it doesn't work. It only works one out of a zillion times. So not to make it super personal about me, and it's not about my life, but it's like, this is why listening to her and listening to any of these people who are not certified therapists or mental health counselors but preach that they care about mental health, it's affecting my mental health listening to this garbage. And let's continue to listen to it for snarking purposes only.
Beliefs you hold about yourself as it pertains to your financial situation, you're just going to keep, like, the human beings are incapable of consistently doing things that are outside of who they perceive themselves to be. So if you perceive yourself to be a woman who's not good at math and, you just suck with money, it will be impossible. I could give you a check for $1 million and I promise you it'll be gone. No matter how hard you try to do something different, because subconsciously you believe those things about yourself. And so you're like, spirit's like, okay, that's who we are. And so I'm going to make choices. Like, I know some of you listening are going to know what I'm talking about. How often have you sabotaged yourself with money, right? You get ahead and then you get really excited and you blow it on something stupid. And
to be honest, not often. I feel like because of what I just shared, that I have like the opposite mindset where I save to the point where I don't buy anything for myself. And, you know, even with my business, I'm afraid to put money on the table because I'm afraid that if I buy a camera or buy a light, it's going to be gone and I should have saved that money for eating or whatever. So no, I don't think I sabotage myself with money, and I don't think most people do that. And isn't she the one who went and bought like a Louis bag because she had, you know, made a deal or something for some book? So she was talking about how she deserves it and she earned this and whatever. Isn't that a sabotage? Like, you know, you finally did something well and now you're gonna go buy a Louis bag. Is that a sabotage, or is that just like being a girl boss? Because I'm confused.
You tell yourself all of this rationale, right? Like, oh, well, I deserve it, or I really needed a break, or, you know, that thing made me feel good, which you're human, you're a grown up, you get to do whatever you want. But if you really stepped back and looked at it, could you see the sabotage that you created? And then could you tie the type of sabotage to a way you were taught? Did mama run out and blow the paycheck every time she got a little bit ahead, right? Or maybe daddy loved life and he was an Enneagram 7 and he loved to do things. So man, he really splurged on those experiences for y'all, even if they didn't have it. I remember
So what's the alternative? Just save it and what? Become wealthy and never spend it either? And she's not going into specifics, but she's saying like, oh, daddy wanted to spend money on experiences. It's like, okay, as opposed to what? Never leaving the home and just giving you guys $1,000 when you graduate from high school. Like, I don't know. There's so many more factors than mindset. Yes, there could be some issues holding you back if you're a compulsive shopper or a compulsive gambler or a compulsive drinker or something where it's a compulsion where you can't hold money in your bank account. But I think for most people, it's paying the bills and like maybe going to a restaurant once in a while or buying a coffee once in a while. But like, you know, I think that's Dave Ramsey's whole thing. Like, oh, you can't go to a restaurant unless you're working at one for whatever. It's like, you can make what, $7 an hour at a restaurant? How long is that going to take you to make the money to actually do anything? And like, meanwhile, your whole life is going by. It's like, maybe we should blame the systems at hand instead of blaming ourselves for every single thing that goes wrong, and try to push back against the collective issues as opposed to just blaming ourselves for everything. It's not our fault that like the world is set up for rich people to keep getting richer and poor people to stay in a cycle of debt and not being able to move forward with their lives. That's not our fault. That's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's a collective organizational fault. The way things are set up, the game is rigged. Yes, you can cheat, you can step on people, you can get ahead and start to be on the other side of the tennis court, as Rachel would say, or you could be honest and try to do the right thing and try to, you know, live your life and also save money and stuff and still get beaten down. You know, if you get sick, that's it. You're in medical debt. Good luck. Bye. And it's like, you know, this is more, not even political, but this is just a bigger issue than personal finances. This is an issue of who's to blame for the lifestyle you are born into and stay in. And Rachel says it's your mindset, it's your fault. And I don't think that's true. I think it's a lot of factors in addition to maybe a little bit of mindset.
I didn't grow up, obviously, in a neighborhood that had much wealth. There were kids at school whose parents had money, but where I lived and like my friendship circle, that wasn't the case. And I remember every year on Christmas, two girlfriends in particular whose family really struggled financially. They're, you know, blue collar, working class, incredible parents, but didn't have a lot of money at all. And come Christmas time, every year, both families would go into crazy credit card debt, buying their kids so many presents. Like, I remember the first time going to one of my friend's houses, this little like ramshackle house, and walking in and the amount of presents under the tree. I'd never seen anything like it. My parents, I mean, they definitely, if they had money, you'd get maybe a toy or something. But mostly, I remember a lot of Christmases where you got like socks or something. And I was pumped. Don't get me wrong. I had aunts and uncles who would buy me some of the fun stuff, and I was super grateful to get socks from my parents. But I remember walking into a girlfriend's house when I was like 10 or 11, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And her parents would go into debt every year and then basically spend the year trying to pay off those Christmas gifts just in time to do it all over again next November.
I can't tell if Rachel's jealous here and saying the advice is like, spend money on your kids because my parents didn't, and they only gave me socks, and I hate my parents. I mean, we already know she hates her parents. Well, that's a fact. I mean, she's talked about it multiple times in books and in podcasts where she's embarrassed that her parents had no money and that, her parents didn't give her anything, that she left like high school early to go to LA to try to make it on her own because her parents never cared about her. So I can't tell if this is advice that's good or advice that like her family, friends, parents are idiots. I'm not sure. Maybe she talks about it. But it's very confusing. I think she's almost like just kind of going off the cuff here and getting some stuff off her chest, which obviously that's what I'm doing today too. But I don't know. I can't tell based on this one analogy that what she means by this.
Wild. But how often do we make choices that we're not even conscious of when it comes to money? So the reason I ask you to look at that is it is very, very, very possible that if you want to be at a different place financially, that you're not there because not of any, like you're working your butt off, you're trying so hard, you're doing all the right things, but your mindset is twisted. And your subconscious mindset is what determines your wealth. Yes, 100%, because I can hear someone saying like, wait a minute, if daddy's a trillionaire and he gives you money, like that determines your wealth. Yeah, you're right. Okay, you're totally right. I'm just assuming that nobody listening to this is a trust fund baby. If you're a trust fund baby, this doesn't apply to you. But everybody else, all the rest of us, however we function, whatever we believe subconsciously, which came from our childhood, is what we're going to manifest unless we actively work on doing something different. Unless we can pull out our view of finances and reshape it. So there's some really...
Okay, I think she's sort of on the right track, but missing the major point. You are most likely to follow your parents, whatever their financial situation was, because that's just how it is. If you're poor, you're born poor, it's much harder, again, I'll reiterate, to get out of that than it is to start at a place of debt-freeness and move on and grow from there, or start at a surplus and grow from there. It's much easier. If you put $1,000 into the stock market, and you also have money to eat and enjoy yourself and live, and you have money to go to school, and you have money, you're going to have a lot more opportunities. If you're able to even, join a league, join a tennis club, join a golf, get together, you have more chances that you might meet somebody that might help you along the way financially. If you're unable to buy that or get into that or take your friends to lunch or, sweet talk an investor, there's a lot less chances that you're going to be able to get yourself out of a financial hole. And she would know that. She did go through that. She had Dave to support her while she was taking all these chances and meeting all these people and, working hard. Yes, she works hard. A lot of people work hard, but it's much easier. And this is the same thing with the Gary Vee situation that I want to talk about at some point. Working for your family or working while your husband's supporting you financially makes all the difference in the world. If you worked hard at McDonald's, working at McDonald's, flipping burgers every single day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no capital that you're putting the money towards. All you're doing is supporting McDonald's bottom line. You are not saving money from that at all. Like the hours that you put in, the hard work you put in, it doesn't matter. And they totally ignore that in all their advice. And I'm lumping Gary Vee and Rachel in together. And even Jen Sincero too. Her dad was like a successful doctor. So at the end of the mindset is, at the end of the day, can you go to bed and think, well, if I really fucked up tomorrow and blew all my money on this, app that I want to make, will I be able to eat in a year? And if the answer is no, because I have, $100,000 in debt from my college and my parents are dead and they're not able to help me or whatever, that's the mindset. But that's reality. It's like almost having a realistic mindset is a bad thing, according to Rachel. So, yeah, I see Miss Mags. Dave is the elephant in the room. He is the factor. And it's not Dave Hollis, like him as a person, that he's some amazing guru that helped her through whatever. He is a person, a cash infusion, like I said. He is the money that is giving her the security, the secure mindset to be able to pursue these things. And not everyone has that, and not everyone will have that. And they're only, because even if you took out a loan for $1 million, let's say a bank gave it to you, which is shocking in the first place if you don't have, money to, or have someone co-sign for you in the first place. If you don't have that, then it's like you're always going to think like, well, I have this debt to pay off. I have this debt to pay off. And that's a bad mindset to have. So she's close, but the reason that you have a mindset is reality, not because you are bad at believing stuff about yourself. Does that make sense? You're seeing the truth for what it is, that it's a bad system and that you're feeling the effects of that. Not that you are, for no reason at all, a negative person and putting this negativity out into the world. Therefore, the universe is rewarding you with a low amount on your bank account. That's so stupid.
Great meditations on manifesting money. Some are like super cheesy, but some are really good just to walk you through the process of how you perceive money. So I remember doing a meditation like this probably like 18 months ago. I was, watching YouTube and I happened to see this thing and I was like, oh, I'll do a meditation. And one of the things she asks is for you to envision your representation of wealth. So maybe it's a stack of money, maybe it's a Mercedes, maybe it's a nice purse, maybe it's a home or a vacation, but to find a vision of one thing that wealth, like what represents wealth to you. And in imagining this thing, she then guides you through this process of basically asking what emotions come up when you think of this thing. And that was sort of the first time I realized, oh, I still had some stuff kind of buried in me from childhood that was affecting how I was handling money, because I was going through a divorce. Yeah, it would have been like almost 2 years ago. I was going through a divorce. And so about 6 months in, I was going through a divorce. I was running this company inside of COVID. I was running a company that specialized in conferences we could no longer hold. It was just, everything financially felt so big and so scary and so wild to me. And I have absolute confidence I'm really good at making money. I am. Like, I don't want to be a douchebag, but I told you.
Most people with money are good at making money. Once you have the money in the bank, most people, I think, are good at making money. It's more rare to get a surplus of money from somewhere and totally blow it. That's more of the rarity, because there are so many avenues in which you can take chances. And because Rachel had blown up and she made money, a lot of it came from working at MLM conferences. She was making like $100,000+ per speech. But she overlooked any ethical value that she had, because she even admits in one of her books that MLMs are a scam and that you shouldn't give your money to a company that asks you to buy a starter kit to become a consultant for the business. So she was aware of that, at least at the point where she wrote the book. But previously she had made multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars going on their stages, promoting their products and their, business systems, their downline system to other women out there. So I don't really understand where she's coming from fully with this, that like, oh, I had a mindset that was wrong. It's like, okay.
Honest with you in this conversation, I'm really good at making money. I've been an entrepreneur for, my God, like almost 20 years. Even when I was a wedding planner and then later did events, like I know I'm really good. I'm a great salesman.
People who are good at making money are people who are able to take from others. So if you have if you're able to, for example, if I was to hire someone to help me with my business, I could pay them the lowest possible price and make them work the longest possible hours and take as much from them as I possibly could by paying them the least. That's good business, right? That's like the Amazon equivalent. Like, streamline everything to the point where the employees make as little as possible, work as much as possible, turn them in, turn them out. That's literally the system at Amazon. They only want people to work there for like 1 to 2 years. You can look it up on Google, Rachel's Bible. You can Google it. That is Amazon's mindset. Bring people in, make them work really hard, burn them out, churn them out. And that's supposed to keep up the innovation, right? So Rachel's saying like, I'm so good at making money. It's like, okay, so you can make money. She was only popular from 2018 onwards, and it's 2022. That's like 4 years. So you were really, really good at making money, but also you had the money to play with. So if you did fail, like the Rise app failed, and she said that was $1 billion idea, didn't work. She said the Rise Together conferences were a great idea that she put money into. Okay, now she's divorced. She had a blog. The blog doesn't really run anymore. She's got the podcast. What does she have left? She has the podcast. Rise conferences are done, apparently. So what is she really good at? Making money, stepping on people, lying to people, and then just rebranding and doing it again? If that's what being good at making money is, I don't want to be it, because ethically, it's not good. Ethically, I think should be at the top of the list of any entrepreneur making money. Ethics needs to be number one, or else we're going to continue on this cycle of people just saying like, I'm so good at making money. That is the number one virtue of life, is just to make money and step on other people to get there. It's like, yeah, if that's what you're good at, you're going to make money. If you're able to look people in the eye and tell you like, you're fired, thanks for your service, or I'm dropping your pay, sorry, I need to go on a vacation to Hawaii next year, and you're able to do that, you're gonna be successful. But is that worth it to me? No, it's not. It's not.
Worker, I'm great with clients. I know how to close a deal. I'm awesome at it. And so I have never struggled to make money, but I have sure struggled to manage money. And so when I was going through this divorce, I had so much, I didn't realize, like subconscious stuff bubbling up for me about how I would do this without a man. And I hate that. Like, I hate admitting that to you guys. But I met my ex-husband when I met him when I was 18. We went on a first date just after I had turned 19. And so I was with him, and he was older. He was 8 years older. So I was with him from the time that I was 19 years old. He always handled the financials. Always. So I went from parents who managed the financials very badly, who didn't teach me anything, but I never had to do it as a child, obviously. And then I got married, and he was like, don't worry, I got this. And I was so happy to have him do that. And as much as I managed the financials at my, in having a business, I always, if you've ever read my book, Girl Wash Your Face, I talk about this a lot. I had really strong limiting beliefs about being able to manage it after a certain amount of money. If you are a working parent, like I...
Okay. So, yeah. Dave, she said before in other interviews with Dave that Dave was the guy who managed the finances. But she also said that she was bad at managing the finances. So does that mean something happened where she tried to manage the finances, it didn't work, and Dave came and rescued her? Or she was 19 years old, didn't have any financials to manage, and she got married immediately because she saw the opportunity that it was to marry a man who was, on a path to becoming an executive at Disney, and had more stability. I mean, the difference between 19 and 28 is huge in financial worlds. Especially with someone without a college degree. And, Dave went to Pepperdine University, a private university, I believe. So he and his family owned a business. They still own a business now. So his family unit would obviously most likely be supportive of him. So at the very least, if she marries into the family, she's going to have some security. So I think that was her mindset there, was to get into a more secure family system financially than she was with her own. And then for her to say, well, I'm bad at managing finances. Did you ever try? I couldn't tell by what she said. She knows how to make money, but she can't manage money. And I think, well, let's take a second break here. Hold on. I'm going to show you their, I looked this up because, oh wait, did I get rid of it? I looked up the PPP loans of the Hollis company. And I think it'll be interesting to see what the deal is. PPP loans search. Because, so ProPublica, I'll bring it back on the screen. ProPublica, which is a amazing journalistic nonprofit group, they do a lot of data journalism, which I think is probably the most important journalism that we have in the world. So let me search Hollis company. I did this earlier. Okay, so they got a loan in 2020 for $998,000. Okay. They also, but I don't know what this means exactly, but they were forgiven for that loan of $1 million. At the time, they had 67 employees at the Hollis company. So this is in 2020, the first round. They said that $750,000 was payroll. So they were spending $750,000 annually, I suppose, for payroll. And then utilities, I guess, would be the office space that they owned or rented in Austin, which allegedly they no longer own or rent from. They're all remote. And then let me go to their LinkedIn for a second. Now, as we know, LinkedIn is not always a super credible source, but I think it does paint a picture and tell us a story about the Hollis company. Okay, let's see. Okay, stand by. Here we go. Okay, so here's the Hollis company on LinkedIn. If I go to people, it should technically. Now, if everyone that worked there had their LinkedIn, which I would imagine if you're working in a modern media company, as they call themselves, tools and inspiration to change your life, driven by passion, fueled by LaCroix. How cute. Now they have 15, according to LinkedIn. Now that's basically, I believe that LinkedIn pulls from who says that their primary job currently is, once you fill out your LinkedIn profile, is currently at the Hollis company. Now, some people may not have updated that. It may be less. Maybe it's more. But 67 to a significant drop. And obviously, some of that is because the events have slowed. But if she's planning another tour, it doesn't make sense that, it's just because we got rid of all of our event people because there's no events, that's what happened. I think they took a huge financial loss, and part of that is because of the projects that they were hoping were successful didn't actually become successful. On the Cringefluencer channel that Cam and I do on Thursdays, where we talk about different cringy influencers, we talked last week about how Rachel and Dave had this leadership conference for Hollis Co, and they talked about all the projects that they were working on. Their biggest projects were Quibi, the Quibi show, which is now defunct, which obviously went nowhere for her. She probably got paid something for producing it, but actually didn't make money via Quibi. The Rise conferences are done. She had the one that was the one I went to virtually that had 50 people there. That's over. They talked about the Rise app, where you could learn how to work out for 10 minutes at a time with Dave and Rachel. That's no longer, it's there, but I don't think anyone actually uses it. So what else do they have? How is she so good at making money? Speaking on stages, she also stopped doing that too. So I don't know where the book, I guess. Dave's books did not hit the bestseller list, so that's not bringing in money. I guess her old books, royalties from her old books, and maybe that she got a advance. But she says she's such an entrepreneur. She's so good at making money. You're only a good entrepreneur if you're able to make money, sustain that money, and employ people for a sustained amount of time. In my humble opinion, as someone who has 0 employees, if I can stay in business sustainably, that's very important to me. For her, she grew. It's like Lulu Rich. I think someone mentioned that in the chat. LuLaRoe grew so astronomically high, could not hold the volume, that they were literally keeping leggings out in the moldy air, and then dropped off the face of the earth. Does that make them good entrepreneurs, or does that make them greedy and stupid? I don't know. You tell me. All right, let's go back to the podcast and continue listening.
Know how essential it is to get a good night's sleep. In fact, I'd had 5 nights in a row of pretty cruddy sleep because my daughter got sick and we had traveled for my son's birthday. There's just so much going on. But last night, you guys, I slept for 8 glorious.
Sorry, I was this is so unrelated to what we were just talking about, but this is her ad for some sort of mattress or something. Okay, skip ahead. Sorry.
And not all sleep or our sleep number. Mine's for proven quality sleep is life threshold of money.
Okay, back to the true programming.
So just a quick side note, but I think this is really interesting. there is psychology that happens when you start to get to a threshold of money that you don't think you are capable of handling on a subconscious level. So you will continue to butt up against this ceiling of whatever number that is. And that number for you could be $100. And that number for you could be $1 million. But you will never break through that. You will just keep making that same amount of money year after year after year after year. You'll never break past it no matter what you do, unless you understand the psychology of it's a mental block. Here's the thing I know. And if you haven't experienced this, what I'm about to say I wonder if you're going to like call bullshit. But I swear to you, you guys, this is the truth. And if this isn't your truth, maybe just borrow mine for a minute. But this is...
It's never a good thing where it's like, this is the truth. Well, it may not be your truth, but just pretend. Usually whatever is coming after that is going to be some sort of falsehood.
And any successful entrepreneur will tell you this, that you tell them this, they're successful and they're good at making money. They'll be like, yep, that's the truth. Here it is. If you can make $100, you can make 1,000. If you can make
$100, you can make 1,000. Okay, maybe, but I think I could make $100 much faster than 1,000. But then also you're going to be working just as much. It's going to take a slower, less desperate attempts to make 1,000. So if you have the money to sit on and not have to make 1,000 tomorrow, that's a lot better than having to put food on the table tomorrow. $100 looks pretty good. That's the difference. Not a mindset. It's what you need at the time. How much money do you need and how much are you in need of it?
1,000, you can make 100,000. If you can make 100,000, you can make $1 million. And this goes on forever. There is no limit to the amount of money that you can make if you're doing a good job, if you're serving people well, if you are learning and growing, if you are doing what you like. If you have figured out a way to make money doing something, and you continue to evolve and grow and work and learn and treat people right, and there is no limit. There's no law that's like, oh well, a human being can only make this amount of money. No, you might not have the information you need yet to make that money. You might not have the lessons you need yet to make more money. You might not have the team yet that you need to make more money. But what I am telling you is that you need to release the belief, if you have it, that you are only capable of making a certain amount, because that is just not true. If you can make $100, you can make $1 million. Ask any successful entrepreneur.
Okay, I was giving her the benefit of the doubt, and I forgot that she had said this part. If you can make $100, you can make $1 million. How? Show me that road. I need the roadmap. Get Dave Hollis on the phone. We need to get the map of life to understand how to go from $100 to $1 million. And any entrepreneur will tell you that. I think the difference is a lot of entrepreneurs who are successful will spend $100,000 to make $150,000. Okay, right? So you're like, wow, this entrepreneur made $150,000 last year. Yeah, but he spent $100,000 on advertising, or she on advertising, and they actually only made $50,000. So they made a teacher's salary or someone in a corporate job salary and probably the hours that it took and the capital that it took to get that business to get to 150,000 was more than if you just worked at an office. So are you a genius, or are you just wanting to play business owner? That's what I think a lot of Rachel's issues are. She wants to cosplay as entrepreneur. She wants to think of herself as an entrepreneur, but then says she can't manage money. Okay, what is that? What is an entrepreneur but managing your own money and the company's money? Isn't that what it is? It doesn't mean that you inspire women to become entrepreneur. Like, an entrepreneur is someone who puts in money to get more than that money to come out. That's all it is. It's whatever business you want. Landscaping, it could be pottery, it could be mindset coaching, whatever. It's anything. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the product is. An entrepreneur is someone who makes profit. That's it.
Because making money in a business is an equation. If you figure out the equation, you can grow that exponentially. Now, is there a limit to how much you can make if you are working for someone else? Yes. Because you are limited by whatever your salary or hourly rate is. If you are working for someone else, you are trading your time for their money. Let me say it again. If you work for someone else, you are trading your time for their money. And the issue is that you only have so much time. So I am here for a side hustle. My Lord, that was how I started my business, was as a side hustle. But at some point, you're going to run out of hours. And that's why it's hard to have the exponential growth that you need if you work for someone else. But I got some ideas about that, which we'll talk about at the end of the episode. So just hang with me.
So the solution is become an entrepreneur, because there's no limits to what money you can make. Okay, great. But obviously not everyone can do that. We can't have a million, cooks in the kitchen with 0 customers. It's just not how it works. We can't have a zillion chefs, head chefs, with no sous chefs or line cooks or, waiters. It doesn't work. So it's that's about how useful this advice is. Because, okay, like I said, the only reason I got to take a chance to be an entrepreneur, to have a video production business, was because I have someone financially helping me survive while I take this chance and risk. So I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. Not everyone is lucky, but it makes us all feel bad. It makes people feel bad. I would imagine, I can't speak for everyone, but if I could, I would imagine if you're listening to this and you're a dental hygienist and you're like, okay, I want to make more money. Maybe a side hustle is the only thing that she's offering. It's not like any other. It's like, believe that wealth is coming to you in the future, and also quit your job and do what? What am I selling? Like, it's not tangible advice. Again, it's just woo-woo bullshit.
If you can make $100, you can make $1 million. But what is required for that is your belief that that is actually possible. Oh yeah, and I also saw someone say this, trading time for money is like such an MLM scheme, like phrase on the bingo card of MLM garbage. It's like, don't trade your time for money, work for me and trade your time for money. It's like, what? If you sold 20 million Monet shampoos to every woman in America, you too could have exponential growth. It's like, if you recruited 45 of your closest friends and family and they worked straight and for 24 hours a day for the next 24 years, you too could be a multimillionaire. It's like, okay, but how likely is that? And also the choice of words. I saw the chat went so fast. You guys are chatting it up. Thank you very much. I'm watching, but I'm only catching like the end half when it scrolls up. But someone said like that's like a Hun bot phrase, go-to phrase. Like, I'm just hopping online for a second just to give you guys a little update on my life, join my team, my business, the opportunity, and also don't trade your time for money. I mean, that can be taken from any MLM Hun today. Scroll online, I'm sure you'll see 3 of them at least say those exact key phrases. So whoever said that, good work. Know about the law of attraction and you know about manifesting, then you know this is true. Okay, if you don't know about the law of attraction and manifesting, please go listen to the episode that I did about this. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but if you scroll back, it's within the last few months, so it should be very easy to find. But basically, what you focus on, you create. And this is why it's really important to understand subconsciously where you're at when it comes to finances. Because if you are focusing on scarcity, if your thoughts about money and wealth and abundance are anchored in fear, if you feel like you're not going to have enough, if you feel like all of those things, whatever you're focusing on, you are going to keep creating. Ask yourself, like, do you always believe that you're going to be behind on your rent? Do you always believe you're never going to have enough money to live the life that you want? Do you always
Well, I think if you look at your budget for the month and your take-home pay, and then you look at your rent and you say, well, I make $2,000 a month and my rent is $2,100 a month. I guess I'm always going to be behind on my rent. Reality. But according to Rachel, that's the wrong mindset. You should just what is the alternative? I assume would find a lesser place, a cheaper place, or make more money. But if you, as she said, trading your time for money and working for someone else as if that's the worst thing in the world, how are you supposed to fix that based on this advice? Believe that it's not true, and what? Then what? I always miss the then what part to this advice, to any advice that comes from Rachel's mouth or any of these self-help gurus' mouth. It's like, okay, I got it. I get it. I got it. You repeated it 25 different ways. Now what? And it's like, that's the end of the podcast, folks. I got to go. It's like, oh, okay, where was the actual tangible advice? But usually there's not.
That you're not going to be able to afford things. Whatever you believe, you'll create. Like when we talk about manifesting, focus is everything. Tony Robbins has this quote that I quote all the time. He says, where focus goes, energy flows. So what I want to ask you is, are you putting your energy into the finances are going to be there and your ability to create wealth and your ability to see financial opportunities all around you? Or is your focus on, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to pay rent this month? Because in one of those scenarios, you've got options. You can be creative. You can think outside the box. And the other one is fear-based.
I think what she means when she says mindset, it is Dave. Like, to replace Dave with the word mindset, if we had like an AI bot that could do that, I think it would be relevant. Because if you're focused on having to pay your rent, yeah, it's gonna be a lot goddamn harder to make money as an entrepreneur, to see financial like opportunities wherever you go, every corner. But it's not a mindset, it's who's supporting you financially. It's having the support financially. That's it. That is the difference. It's not your mindset. Your mindset is the result of what your reality is. Meaning, she had Dave. She didn't have to worry about being homeless. That is a legitimate fear of millions of people in the world, if not in the United States. Every month, the bills come, their paychecks come, that if they are behind in any way, they're going to be homeless. Believing differently is not going to help you. It's just not. But rich women like Rachel don't have to worry about that. And it's very annoying and frustrating when, and I said this in my Instagram post, that you blame poor people for their mindset when you should be blaming the reality that they have to face. Period.
It's just going to drown you and keep you from moving forward. So what you focus on, you create. So I want to ask, what are you focusing on? And sometimes, this is a really important thing when it comes to manifesting. Sometimes people are like, oh, Rach, well, I have a vision board. I'm using my Start Today journal. I write it down every single day. I've been doing this for like a year and nothing's changing. And then I'll ask them, okay, well, explain it to me. Talk me through how, when you think about the topic, like, tell me how you think of it. And they're like, well, I'm just, I'm like, any day more, I'll have more money. Like, I wonder when I'll have more money. When is it coming? I know I'm going to have more money, but when is it coming? It's like, wait, no. You're not focusing on what it would feel like to have all your bills paid and have no financial worries. You're talking about it, and that might even be part of what you're saying. But the biggest thing I hear is that you're wondering when is this going to show up? When will this be mine? When will I have this thing? When will this finally be over? So you're actually manifesting lack. If you're wondering when something is going to happen in your life, your consciousness is focused on the absence. Because if
this is the thing with this is the fail-safe for all law of attraction gurus. If you focus on the when, like, okay, I'm about to be homeless, right, in 2 months. I've been manifesting my wealth for 2 years now. It has not changed my financial situation. I'm still struggling to pay my bills, but I'm pretending that I don't. So I'm actually going into more credit card debt because I'm just pretending that I'm living my life comfortably and that the money is going to show up at my doorstep tomorrow. It's not working. So now I'm asking Rachel, hey, when is this supposed to happen? Because like I've been doing this for a while and it's not working. Well, if you're asking when, then it's not going to work, is it? It's like, again, confirmation bias. If it happens immediately, it's like, see, you manifested that perfectly. Good for you. You're a manifesting boss babe. But if it doesn't happen ever, it's like, well, it's your fault. Your fault. Same thing with MLMs. If you're in the downline and you try to sell the opportunity to 1,000 of your friends and none of them say yes, it's like, well, you didn't believe in yourself. You didn't work hard enough. It's your fault. Not that the opportunity was shit to begin with and that there was never a chance that you were going to sell an opportunity to sell Beachbody to your friends. It was never happening. you paying the starter kit for the business was the business, not that there was ever an opportunity that you just didn't grab because you were not caring enough. Again, it's always your fault, according to Rachel. If you believe you're poor, it's your fault. If it doesn't happen, if you believe and you do the manifesting like she says, in the way that she says, exactly like she says, and it doesn't happen, it's also your fault. So basically, it's like foolproof advice for her. No matter what, you cannot blame Rachel. That seems like a pretty good thing to give out, dual advice. Like, my advice to you is to take that $1 million and throw it on the blackjack table and just, go all in, believe in yourself. And that person loses. It goes, well, I guess you need to believe in yourself enough. And if you win, it's like, see, I told you so. It's like, either way, Rachel wins.
You already had it. You wouldn't need to say when. And remember, we attract not what we want. We attract what we are. We attract the energy level that we put out into the world. So one of the ways to counteract this, if you experience or if you are realizing you're having that, Oprah calls it the aha moment, if you're having that right now and you're like, holy crap, I'm doing that. I'm actually focusing on the lack. I'm focusing on scarcity. I'm not focusing on abundance. So the way to do this is to ground yourself in a gratitude practice. I know. Guys, I know I just give you the same freaking advice for the last decade and you're tired of hearing me talk about it. But the reason I keep talking about it is because it's right. If you attract what you...
She just happens to also sell gratitude journals. It has nothing to do with the advice being the same for the last 12 years, even though she's switched religions and is no longer a marriage counselor and has completely revamped her entire image again and has a new boyfriend that makes buku bucks, which is I think the biggest factor. Again, Dave had money, her new boyfriend has money. Therefore, she's able to continue to try to shill and to try to change her image and to try to do new things and to be embarrassed in public and then to come back and try again. It all comes down to not a mindset. It comes back to she has the financial ability to keep trying. And that's not what everyone has. Very little people have that ability to keep failing. And she says, like, I failed again and again publicly just to make it to the top of the mountain. It's like, yes, but that money was pushing you up the mountain the whole time, and you fell back down, and the money will push you up again because you have romantic relationships with men who have money to give you.
Then living in a state of gratitude will create a state of abundance. If you're focused on all that you have and how lucky you are and what your blessings are, and man, the universe always takes care of me. God always takes care of me. You know what? Here I am 39 or 56 or 22, and I'm still kicking, which means that God, the universe, source, whatever you believe in, has always provided for you. It's always provided without fail because you're still here listening to me chat, right? So a gratitude practice where you can focus on how freaking lucky you are. Yes, we go through hard seasons. I have felt like so many times in the last 2 years, I felt like the universe is kicking the crap out of me. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you've been on this journey with me, and I'm so grateful that you hold space for that. But lots of times in the last couple of years, I felt like I'm getting the crap kicked out of me. And even in the hardest seasons, we're still blessed. It's not lip service. It's a way of life. It is a practice to believe. Practice, meaning you got to try at it. You got to practice at it, like learning the guitar or to speak another language or doing yoga. Those are practices, and gratitude is a practice.
Okay, I think she brings up a wonderful point about practice. And this is something I wanted to bring up for a while now, but haven't had the opportunity to. But it comes down to kids playing sports, right? So I played tennis when I was younger. I got to a certain level where I did tennis camps during winter break, and I got to play after school. And up until I was about 12, 13, it was a fun sport hobby. I was learning. You're a kid. You start to learn the sport, and I got pretty good at it. But you hit a certain point when you're 13, 14 where you have to take it seriously, or you're not going to end up in a college program. You're not going to end up at Wimbledon unless you really take it serious. And most of the time, 99.9% of the time, that means you have to financially invest in that training to become a really good sports player, an athlete in whatever sport you're in. Very, very rarely, sometimes it happens, football, for example, or basketball, some of those sports where it's like if you're taller or naturally bigger physically, you don't have to have as much training. But some in the sports that it does take training, golf, tennis, I don't know, anything else other than those two, basketball, football, probably more soccer, you have to invest financially. Your parents have to sacrifice, or they just need to take some of their money and give it to you. Yes, it takes hard work. Yes, it does. You still have to dedicate yourself as an athlete. But if that financial component is not there and you're not training with a private coach after a certain amount of time, there's no hope for you. I'm sorry to say, there's no hope. And I could not get over that for a long time because my mom and dad couldn't afford to send me to, high school level coaching. They had the youth was fine. That was our limit, was like youth sports. And I had the desire and the ambition and the want to learn. And I tried to do it on my own by training on my own with my, public school, high school, which was not that great of a tennis program. I had no hope. There was no hope, but I held myself to that standard of like, I need to be better. I need to beat these people who are getting trained by like Wimbledon players, and they're beating me like no problem. And I'm just so upset with myself and angry with myself and upset and like self-loathing. And I'm like, until I turned 30 years old, I didn't realize I never had a fighting chance. And that's what she's forgetting to mention here in this section of her talk, is that practice costs money. To go to yoga and practice yoga in a studio with a professional, I went to yoga, I became a certified yoga instructor. That cost, and I did it in a trade, but that costs $2,000. If you don't have $2,000 to spend or blow on something, you're never gonna get deep into it. You can't, you can only do it from your level. And maybe you could read a library book about yoga, yeah, but it's not the same thing. And same thing with practicing guitar. You could teach yourself online, maybe now, but back in the day, you had to go somewhere. You had to pay somebody to teach you. And it's something that we're not talking about enough, where we blame ourselves for not being better at something, for not being good, for not making it, for not like succeeding in life. Look at all the things that other people had that you didn't, and then put yourself on the correct level. Well, this person had Wimbledon training. I was playing outside of my schoolyard in the middle school parking lot. Yeah, I'm here and they're here. That's about right, and it's okay. And that's something I'm working on in therapy, like being honest with myself. But then don't blame yourself. It is just a shitty part of life that, like, yes, once in a while someone will come up from out of nowhere and just be naturally good. They're like a savant in something. But 99% of us, you fall somewhere on that spectrum of, if you have the financial ability to practice, to put in the work, to have someone care about you, to have a team that, is invested in you because you're investing money into the team, and then you also take it to that level. But don't forget that there's a big financial component, because that's something I did, and I held myself super responsible for that, and it sucked. And that's what my self-esteem was being hit by a lot. Like, well, I couldn't even do tennis. What else can I not do? It's like, yeah, but also, as Rachel would say, but also, it's not all my fault. Some of it's society's fault. I wish all sports were free. It's just not a fact of life. So that's my sports rant. Thank you. Let's go back.
You have to reach for it even when you don't want to. But look, if on the other side of this practice is that you finally experience abundance and wealth, freaking worth it. I don't care if you start a gratitude practice because you want more money, because you will be changed by the gratitude practice. Don't worry. So align yourself with feelings of blessing and feelings of abundance. Like, seriously, when you think about finances and you think of, if I had more wealth, I would have fill in the blank. I would have freedom. Okay, do a gratitude practice and find a way to be thankful for things you've experienced in your life that made you feel free, right? Whatever feeling you are trying to get, whatever feeling you believe you will get if you had the finances that you want, that is the feeling that you want to try and recreate in a meditation on gratitude. If I said, I want more money because that would make me feel really safe. Okay, do a gratitude practice every single day on times in your life where you felt so secure, you felt so taken care of, when your mom used to give you hugs when you were little, or when you get in bed at night and it's super cozy. Anything that gives you the same feeling that you believe finances will give you. This is this is like magic, you guys. Not only is it going to change what you are attracting, it's going to change the way you feel.
Okay, so I think if she left it at, well, if you want money to come in and make you feel safe, just realize that you're already safe and you don't need money to come and fix that. Money is great, it would do that for you, but you can also find ways to feel safe without money. I think if she left it at that, I could be like, okay, I get that, I understand that. But to say that, to write down all the times you felt safe because your mom hugged you when you were a kid is somehow going to attract money, like, you know, she didn't say this, but a lot of these self-help people say money magnets, like the magnetism towards you, because you wrote down in your Rise journal, Start Today journal, that, you know, you were secure when you were 10. I don't know this. There's no scientific evidence for this, so I'm going to err on the side of I don't believe it because it doesn't make sense to me.
Make no mistake, what you think is what you feel. Most of us are raised to believe that our feelings, joy, fear, insecurity, excitement, nervousness, you name it. We think that feelings are the product of what is actually happening. They're not. Nope. Your feelings are 1000% based on what you are thinking. If you change the thought, you can change the feeling. I
have to stop and read this comment that says, from Miss Mags, Minnesota or MN? I don't know. One of those. So when is Rachel going to reveal her gratitude for Dave and his money that let her fail again and again? I'll wait around for that. 100%. Where's the gratitude for Dave? She's literally told everyone that she wants him to F off because she can't stand him. And, even though he's the father of her children, that, you know, he sucks and that there's never been a good thing about him, essentially. And I don't know. I just feel like, yeah, if you are, you know, poor, as she would say, or you're not wealthy, but you still need to be grateful for the things that you do have. Okay, what about the ex-husband that you shared 18 stinking years with, that provided you a lot of financial opportunity, a lot of networking opportunities? There's no gratefulness for him. And even though, you know, they're divorced or whatever, you could still retroactively be grateful for the opportunities that he's provided you. So I think MS Mags, is right on the money with that one.
Some of you just like, I hope your mind's just exploded right now. If you have never read it, read David D. Burns' Feeling Good, or listen to it on Audible. It's this entire concept. Or read You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Same concept. Or listen to it on Audible. She reads it on Audible, so it's really good. But if you're having a bad day, if you're feeling negative emotion, it is based on your thoughts. And I know that every single one of you, maybe there's like 3 people, but I'm going to guess that 99.9% of those of you who are listening to this have dealt with anxiety before. And this is how you're going to know that what I'm saying is true. Have you ever gotten anxiety about something you were imagining that hadn't actually happened? You go into a full-on anxious mode because you're thinking about the possibility. You think, and your nervous system responds. Dr. Amen, who is a good friend and my brain doctor, has this line I love. He says, you don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. You don't.
Just for the record, for insider knowledge on this channel, I'm working on a longer piece on Dr. Amen, the brain doctor who told Rachel allegedly that she has holes in her brain, which basically forgave her for Toiletgate. You know, they didn't specifically discuss Toiletgate, but it came out where she has, you know, they do a brain scan of your brain, and she had some holes in her brain, and therefore, you know, it explains her erratic behavior. I'm doing a deep dive into him, and it's going to be more of a thoughtful video where it's like more like the one that I did for Dave's book review, the Built Through Courage review, where there's some more comedic elements and more like short film style. So that is coming. If you're watching the stream, that is exclusive information. That video is in the works, and I think there's a lot of interesting tidbits with that guy, including some financial security in his background that he doesn't talk about very often. So I really dug out the research for this one. So if you're looking forward to brain scan deep dive, that's coming soon.
Believe it when it comes to anything, but certainly not when it comes to money and wealth and abundance. What you think creates what you feel. and what you think when it comes to the financial situation that you're inside of is 100% determining the fact that you can't move out of this. And I don't want that for you. I know what it feels like to spend a huge chunk of your life, right? Like the first 21 years of my life struggling financially. That's more.
The first 21 years of my life struggling financially. Rachel, most people, I would imagine, to some degree, spend like 70 years of their life struggling financially in this country, and definitely across the world. And again, we'll go back in time, in ancient times, like every single person struggled financially at some point, except for the king and queen, of the kingdom, the serfdom. So again, like this advice that she's giving as if it's like from ancient wisdom, it doesn't make sense. It's not true. It's just like, once again, it's just her word salading just for the sake of word salading. And she spent the first 21 years of her life struggling financially. So at 22, you were fine? Like, that's pretty freaking good, God, my first job, I was 21. I made $15 an hour working overnight. My second job, I got an upgrade to making $28,000 a year, working 9 hours a day, weekends, overnight, and hating my life, having no social life. So, and I'm 30 now, I'm finally able to take a breath for half a second and relax, only because the pandemic happened, and only because my fiance has a job where it allows us both to live where I can not make money 1 month, maybe, or not make that much money, and push it off to the next month, and we're not like desolate and needing to be on the street. So that's also a personal anecdote, but it's just like, okay, at 22, you were financially free. That's pretty good, or financially relaxed. And also you were married to somebody who was, taking on a lot of the brunt of the work so that you could like play blogger and event plan for Matt Dillon or whoever. What's the guy's name that was in, not Matt Dillon, Matt Damon, God. Ugh, you'd sound frustrated. This is like much lighter than I felt yesterday, because I think talking on the stream lets me like get it out, because I can actually let my feelings flow. But it does bother me, because it makes me angry that people who like her and are still in the Rachel Hollis is great camp may take away from this. Oh God, you're right, Rachel. I have been doing this to myself. I have been forcing myself to feel this way because I'm a negative person. It's like, no, there's probably their life circumstances put them in that situation. Could they do better? Maybe. I don't know. But taking this advice is most likely not going to get them there.
And half my life. And so you can bet that that's going to take a really long time to adjust your frame of thought to where you want to go, not where you are. So if I spent 21 years knowing what it felt like to struggle really hard financially,
that's good.
And then I had, let's say, 15 years after that, 16 years after that, to know what it was like to have money to pay the bills. Not wealth, but just like, for the first many years of our marriage, we weren't wealthy, but we could like pay our bills. We could shop at Target. You could go on the occasional vacation to like Cabo. Like, we were good.
Okay, that's garbage, because I went back through Rachel's Instagram, and they were like going to Argentina, they went to Cabo, they went to Hawaii multiple times. Give me a break. They're well-traveled individuals, and they brought their kids with them. This is not some sort of like, we were barely able to eat noodles. We upgraded from beans to refried beans. It's like, you had a very good life. And they lived in like LA. Come on. Stop playing this like, I was poor. I was really poor when I was 21, but then I was just a little bit less poor. It's like you were on the top of the world scale. You were on the top like 10%, if not the 1%, not the 1%, but like the top 10% of wealth in the world, even at 22 years old. So that's pretty good. I think she's trying to recreate history a little bit, where it's like, I didn't have anything. It wasn't until I divorced Dave that I really started to like be this way. It's like, no, I'm not buying it. Maybe she got super wealthy, but I think compared to other people, she was wealthy before.
And then have known what it's like in the last, I don't know, maybe 6 years to have wealth. The first, because my ex-husband had a job that paid really well and he kept making more money. And then later because I finally, figured it out. I figured out a way to monetize a decade of being a lifestyle blogger. A decade.
Okay, well, at least she admits that Dave was a part of it. She doesn't say that he provided her a lifestyle of the wealthy, even though that's what I believe it was from my vantage point, a wealthy lifestyle. But then she says, well, I finally figured it out after a decade of being a lifestyle blogger. Yeah, because you were able to have him pay for everything or most things while you were growing the business. Because she hired people like right off the bat. She hired like bloggers and guest bloggers and people to come take photos and people to shoot her Rach talk, a video producer. Those aren't cheap. So she had the ability to figure it out. Like I've said in the beginning, that is the difference. It's not that, Rachel is special in any way, that she took lifestyle blogging and made it into a multi-million-dollar business and like no one else could have done it. Someone else in that situation, given those circumstances, could have also done it too and have done it too. So she thinks she's so unique. She thinks she's so special. She thinks she's like figured it out by, pulling it out of her ass and just magically manifesting the cloud of air. It's like, no, you just farted. In one of my videos, I talk about how in Rye, she said that she never farted in front of Dave and Dave never farted in front of her. It's like, maybe you should have. Maybe you release some of that gas and take a break. My God, you're not poor and you're fine and you didn't do all this on your own. Just admit something once in a while. I don't know. That was a weird analogy. I don't know if it made sense, but I just wanted to tell that fart story.
Of work that I did where I didn't really make any money. Like not that I would call wealth. Like I said, just, a great life. Like, hey, I could shop at Target. That's awesome. But I feel like I've been in every phase and I'm very conscious that every phase required a new way of thinking. So I don't believe this is something that's going to happen to you overnight, but I really do think that it's worth your time to take a deeper dive on what money represents to you. Now, as per usual, I thought that I was going to do a single episode and I've already talked a really long time. And I want to make sure that you stay present because the rest of the notes that I wrote are about like, okay, let's make some money and here's what we're going to do. And what are the things that you can do in your life? And I don't have any tips for you on like how to actually go out and make, $1. I told you I don't have anything to sell you or business you can join. But I do have really specific ideas on the things that you can do, the practices that you can have in your life, the visualizations you need to be doing, the meditations you need to be doing in order to really live the way that you want to live and have freedom from the oppression of struggle. I mean, that's something I want you guys to get. You do not have to live this way. I don't believe it. And I know that it's easy. It's so easy to look at my life now and make up stories about, because I've had so many people say this to me over the years and so many comments and sure, YouTube videos and whatever else where other people are like, oh, it's easy for her to say like rich, whatever. And I'm like, I did not start out that way.
Easy for me to say. I mean, it is easy for me to say. Yes, you didn't start out that way. Yes, you started off poorish. There's a lot of people in a worse situation that are orphaned in foster care. There's a spectrum of circumstances. And this is not to say like, you should only, tell your story if you're on the bottom end and then make it to the top. I'm not saying that. There's a lot of nuance to all of this. But okay, so she started off poorer. By 19, she was married to a man who had a stable job. That is a huge leap into, he wasn't a millionaire maybe at that point, but he was secure and he was older. So he had already jumped through his, entry levels and was now into a mid-level career when they got married, right? Then he had connections within the entertainment industry. She started to be an event planner and started planning events for bigger celebrities who I would imagine had some cash and capital to give her for these parties. to plan. And then she also got into the blogging sphere because she had time, because she wasn't working full time, I don't believe, to become a blogger and to play with that and see how to make money and see how to do things in that world. So good for her, but again, not everyone has that opportunity. And then the rest of her life, from like, let's say, I don't know, she says the last 6 years she was actually wealthy, but I think in her mind, like multi millions per year is wealthy, and 1 million per year is not that wealthy. But let's talk on real terms, down to earth terms. I think, you know, she was wealthy more than she was poor, because she got married to someone who was stable, and she also made money along the way. She wasn't only a mom at home, not providing for the family, but she was also blogging and getting sponsorships and event planning and writing books and all that stuff. So good for her, glad for her. But you know, let's talk about the real story going on between these words that she's saying.
Struggled and clawed and figured it out. And I don't say that like, oh, I'm so great. Right? No, I believe to the core of my fucking being that humans are capable of anything. I believe it. And honestly, maybe right now you're like telling yourself all the reasons that that is not true for you. I don't care who you are, where you come from, where you started out. I don't care about your gender. I don't care about your ethnicity. I don't care about your education. None of it. Because I promise you that there are so many examples in history, but freaking A, in the last 100 years, of someone who had a very similar start that you did and managed to rise far above and beyond their origins. Are there also examples of lots of people who didn't? Hell yeah. But why in the world would you use those as an example for you? Look, think of it as if you were talking to your child or the person you love most in the world. Would you give them the optimistic view? Would you tell them that they were capable of greatness? Would you encourage them to believe in themselves? Yes, you would. So why don't you believe that about you? I think it is possible for any of us to rise above our means. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it goes quickly. That's something people get so wrong. Are you looking at my career 20 years in? Oh, easy for you to say you have money. Yeah, I fucking hope that any of us who work at something for 20 years start to see fruition in the last 3. Like, believe.
Whew, okay, so she's still ranting. We're almost at the end of this podcast, but I just wanted to stop it there. And she curses twice, so ooh, she's being real, guys. She's getting into her sermon talk. Again, the 20 years thing. We're like, well, I spent 20 years building this company. It's like, and it just paid off in 3. That is a privilege, to have 20 years of runway to be able to try and test and do these things. I think a lot of businesses, okay, let's look at Blockbuster, for example. Blockbuster was a successful business, thousands of franchises across the country. A new innovation comes around, boom, they don't take advantage of it. They don't, pivot and evolve, and they die. Is that a company that we look at and go, wow, or an entity or whatever, like, wow, they did really good for 20 years. We should celebrate Blockbuster from now until the end of time and look at their model and follow it. No, I don't think so. They didn't withstand the tests of time. And I think that's what true entrepreneurship is. And even looking at the Hollis company, okay, they went from 67 employees to maybe 15 or less, possibly. I don't know how those figures, obviously that's not a public company, but it dropped off the face of the earth essentially when Rachel had Toiletgate and her and Dave got divorced. So this person giving advice, where their vantage point is not a place that I would want to mimic or to look at and go, wow, like she did it, I could do it. She did it for a very short period of time. It's like running a sprint versus running a marathon. Like she could run a sprint okay, but the marathon ain't doing very good. She's way behind. She's like at mile 3 and she's struggling. So to take her advice about running a marathon, I don't think I would. And for someone who was a poor child, and then immediately got with a man with stability, financial stability, and then now she's rich, why would I take her advice on how to get myself out of a situation that is not financially stable. I don't think she has any sense other than her real advice, which she's not giving here, is find a person that has money, that you can marry, that you can depend on, that's not going to dump you. Get them, hold on to them, grow your business slowly, take chances and risks, take their money if they're willing, and use it to your advantage. It might not be as bubbly and sweet and self-sufficient and righteous of advice that she believes in herself that she's done, but it's the truth. And even better, have children with them so that no matter what, if you get divorced, you also can hold on to their, finances in some way. That's harsh, and that's not advice I'm giving. It's just the true advice if she was to take off this filter of, I just really care about you guys. I just really fucking care. It's like, no, you don't. You care about yourself making money. You've already made that clear over time. And the truth is, just be honest and say, I think a lot more people would respect her, maybe. I don't know. I would, if she just came out and said it. Like, the way I did it was, I found this guy, he was good enough for me. He made a lot of mistakes along the way, but he was financially secure, and I really needed that financial security to be able to run my business. So he wasn't the best, but we had great kids. We had good times. It didn't work out. Once the business took off, I felt like I needed an exit because he was annoying me. That's what I did. And now I'm struggling to find my way again. But, I got a new boyfriend who's a different type of guy, but also makes a lot of money. That seems to be the secret here. Peace out. I've been Rachel. That's the truth. But we're all just tiptoeing around the truth as if this is just inspirational advice from a woman who really knows it all. Anyways, let's just Let's wrap up this last little bit, and we can hear Rachel give it to us straight one more time.
In yourself. And I can't tell you how to do it. I can't tell you with your job, do you need to push for a raise? Do you need to ask for more responsibility? Do you need to try that? I'm not living in your life. I can't give you the exact tools, but I can tell you that believing that it is possible is the first step, is the most important step. Your belief, your faith, your trust is the most important piece here. So come back next week and I will record part 2 of the series on money that I didn't realize was going to be a series, but you know me, talking too much. I hope you got something out of today's episode. I would really appreciate if you would subscribe to the podcast. Some of y'all have been listening for years. You're still not subscribing. It's just a really great thing you can do for any podcast that you listen to. If you love the show, please write a review.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm over it. So what do you guys think? Did you learn something? Are you financially free? Let me look at you over here. Are you financially free now? Rachel may not have a course, but I have a course. It's called 10 Steps to Becoming Financially Free in Keya's World. And in Keya's world, step 1 is marry someone rich. And the way to do that is to go on to seekingarrangements.com. It's a great little website. If you haven't heard about it, just Google it. And or ashleymadison.com. These are wonderful matchmaking websites that you can find great relationships in with people who have wealth. And a lot of times will give you a lot of freedom too, which is what we're all seeking, right? We're all seeking freedom and money. So do that, find somebody, and settle down immediately because we want to start this business off as soon as possible. Also, if there's an MLM available that you can get at become a founder of, so you're at the top of the upline, let's do that. Forget the ones that have been established because there's no way you can move up. It's so hard. But maybe find a new one to come out and then start there and then just lie to everybody. And then by the time people figure it out that it's really not going to work out, then you can just quit and then take that money and then become a life coach. Because then you have the thing that, your claim to fame, which is that you made a bunch of money, and people will follow that because, hello, have you been to America recently? That's all that matters. So that's my core. It's actually one step. I said 10 steps. There's only one step, and that's the step. Exactly what I just said. So, if you like that, please send me $5 in the chat, and you will get a certificate that shows that you understand life's great intricacies in Keya's world. Ta-da. Yes. So thank you guys. I'm going to change the thumbnail because I didn't get to anything that I was originally going to talk about. We were going to talk about like granola Rachel, how she's become like one with the earth. Only thrift shops and only flies to other countries or I guess Hawaii is not a new country, but she flew to England like twice this year and Hawaii like 6 times. So, she's really eco-friendly minus the flights and other issues that she has done in the past. And she's also talking about energy healing and blah, blah, blah. So we'll talk about that on a different episode in the future. Thank you guys for watching. I'm seeing your comments come in and I love them. Oh wait, let me move them to my head. And so I'm learning, as you can see, I'm learning this live streaming thing. And I don't know who Betty was. I never saw her comments come through, but I saw people commenting about Betty. I'm gonna find Betty and read her comments to see what, maybe it was Rachel in disguise. It seems like she was on the hater train. That's okay. We're allowed to have haters here. Haters bring in, it's not even a hater. She's a person with an opinion, probably. I don't know what she said, but I'll look at it and see. So if you are wanting more content and less of me, but more of people like me, well, it's not less of me. I'm also there, but it's less of me talking fully. You can also follow a different channel that Camila and I have come out with called Cringe Fluencers. And as of late, we've talked about Rachel and Dave the most because obviously there's so much to talk about these days, but I'm going to show you what that channel looks like. So if you're interested, you can. Aha, okay. That's the channel. It's with me and Cam, if you follow her. That's her and I there. Thursday, so what's today? Tuesday? So Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be talking about, so the goal this week is to do a quiz about Hollisville. So that involves Heidi Powell, Dave Hollis, Rachel Hollis, maybe some outsiders too, some special guests. And basically we'll ask the question, everyone will get a chance to guess the answer, and then we'll reveal it with a clip or something that proves that we're not just making it up. So it's almost like a game show, like a Hollisville game show. And it'll be a little bit, hopefully less serious and more fun and just ridiculous because there's a lot of like little random trivia facts that I've like kind of learned and gleaned over the years over the year that I've cared about this and been in the Reddit. So it's time to release those and get those out of my folder so I can delete the clips because I've been holding on to them. I'm like, well, I can't make a whole video about this, but it's interesting nonetheless. So that'll be Thursday. And then we'll keep doing these live streams on my channel because I enjoy them a lot and it's fun. It's really fun. And I hope you guys had fun too. And thank you for the super chats and all that. I'm, like I said, new to live streaming, so I appreciate the love and support, obviously. And it's been real, guys. I'm gonna go back and read the chat and make some comments back. So thank you. I will see you soon. Okay, I need to get an outro or some sort of song or something, but Rachel says, I love you, I'm rooting for you. I'm not gonna say that because I don't know anybody. I don't know you guys, you girls, you people. But let's think of something else. At one point I was saying, choose sadness, of course, that's like the catchphrase of this channel. Choose sadness because if you can choose your feelings, might as well choose sadness. Why not? We need a new one. We need some sort of other ending catchphrase. So let me know in the comments after the stream is over and we'll decide. We'll discuss and decide what a good catchphrase at the end could be. Because I don't know how to end these things. And I ended up just talking to myself, putzing around with my thoughts and beliefs at the end of this and never know when to wrap it up. So, all right. Bye-bye. See you. Sob gang. That's a good one. Sob gang.